Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the Coffee and Carving Show. I'm your host, Alec, and today we have a guest, a very special guest, a young man, actually, for once, right? A young dude. He's 15 years old. He is extremely talented, super talented, and he is an amazing dude, just in more respects than just his carving. He's super fun. He's likable. You'll find that you want to be his pal. So I hope you enjoy this. And a couple things before we get into it. I have a mug here. My mom made me. And of course, my coffee. And this is, I think it's so cool. She made this as a test piece, as an example of the coffee mug release that we are going to do here. So they're going to be a very similar size to this, might be a bit smaller. And so we're going to do a release of Coffee and Carving Show mugs, handmade by Ma. And she's doing all the glazing, all the designs. And I'm not really sure how she's doing this, but regardless, look at that, little stamps, cool little stamps. These will be available probably in the next couple of weeks. I don't know when, so that's that. But I just think they're the coolest looking mugs ever. I love these things. So if you're looking for a sweet mug, they're handmade. My mom makes them. We got her a kiln for her birthday this January. And that's it for my coffee. I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's a doozy. He's a great young man. I actually consulted with him a few weeks ago. Or a few days ago, and I just enjoyed talking to him so much that I thought, gosh, we need some young blood, some young excitement in this show. So hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for all the nice comments in the last video. And that's why we're here, because you guys are supporting. And so I just wanted to say thanks for that. And we'll get to the email at the very end of this if you want to see that. But I wanted to first thank our coffee sponsor of the week. I believe we have, let's see, who do we have? Oren bought us, or myself, 5 coffees. So really appreciate it, Oren. He says, hey, Alec, keep that CNC train rolling. Cheers. Thank you, Oren. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for your support in words and deeds as well. We, of course, never expect the coffee. Always appreciate it, though. So Jet mentions the school, my school, and I just thought for ease of access, if you wanted to see that, that's the school that I started, the online school of carving called Fundamentals of Wood Carving. You can click that link in the description, and that'll take you to it. So anyway, thanks again, guys. I hope you enjoy this podcast. I know you will. Jet, thank you for being willing to join me today.
Thanks for having me.
So you are, remind me of how old you are.
15.
15. Wow. And when did you start carving?
I started carving when I was 12. Just picked it up as a hobby during the pandemic. Wanted something interesting and satisfying and fun to do with my hands. So I just picked up whittling just with a knife. Did that for about a year. Then got interested in some more professional work, art shows, different things like that. Consulted with you about getting some tools and joining the school, and just grew from there.
That's awesome. This is cool. This is a shameless advertisement. I've paid Jet a large sum of money to actually just do a promotion for the school. No, that's cool, man. I'm really happy to hear that I've been a part of it in some way. And but that's amazing. So you're 12 years old, which is ironically the same time that I started carving. So We started at the same time. You're already doing it professionally, meaning that you're already selling your work. You're selling tons of carvings. You're telling me that tons of people in your area already have your work, and probably abroad because of the internet. What's that been like? Like, how has that felt? And do you primarily sell in certain places, like you mentioned, art shows? What does that look like?
So when I first started selling, when we first moved down to the island, I consulted with the shop about selling some of my work. They bought 4 or 5 of my carvings, gave me like $500, gave me to
Wow.
buy the tools, and that really boosted my confidence. So I just decided to start looking into art shows around the area. There's a lot of
Mhm.
art shows on the island in different places. So I signed up for a couple shows in Georgia and Florida and just took off from there. Followed your example of doing live carvings, really based that,
Yes.
and that's definitely helped. I feel like selling artwork, doing it live, people really enjoy seeing the whole process and seeing that I only do hand tools. I don't use any power tools or anything. So I think that's basically where I started. Was the shop really helped me. I don't sell primarily in shops anymore. I'm building up to do tree carvings. I've been doing a lot of tree carvings. My friends have been letting me practice at their house and just carving their trees and hoping to grow that into a whole other avenue of revenue for my business. So
Yeah, so that's something I wanted to talk about too, because I was perusing your Instagram in preparation for this, and also just because I like seeing what you're doing. And you had done this giant face. I mean, bigger than anything I had done at your age. A giant face, probably what, 4 times life size or something crazy like that. Wood spirit, was that in a living tree?
it was in a water oak, so it wasn't a living tree.
Okay.
The owner of the tree said that it was fine. I know a lot of people were probably like, that tree's going to die, which it will because of how big the face is. Here, my light just turned off. Um,
Yeah.
how big the
Right.
face is. So he said it was fine for me to carve that big of a face on tree. The trees that
Yeah.
I'm doing, I started doing some other trees. They're live oaks, so they're bigger trees, and I'm doing smaller carvings in them. But yeah,
Okay.
that tree was live, so it definitely will die probably in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Um,
Right. But they probably, if they let you do that and they knew that, they probably don't want the tree to begin with. They probably wanted it to be an artwork more than they wanted it to be there. So
yes,
that's
that's what
cool.
they plan to cut it down anyway. So
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. Great. So, well, then another piece you did a lighthouse. Let me see if I can pull this up. It's on your gram, right?
yeah, I have it here. I think.
Do you? Yeah. Show me a picture.
Yeah, I was just working on it today actually. Um,
I also, if you have a picture of your wood spirit, I'd love to see that as well.
it's going to show up on there, but it's
Yeah,
basically just
that is so cool. It's
um,
set in I love the way you set it in that kind of hole. So it's like mysterious little portal into this lighthouse. That's so cool.
yeah, I really that's been that was a fun project to work on. It was definitely
Yeah.
some harder wood to
Right.
carve. I've never carved
Well,
live before.
yeah.
It's definitely harder.
Live oak. Yeah, I've never carved live oak. I'm probably probably wrong about this, but I feel like you hear about live oak down south mostly in warmer climates. So I'm guessing that it really doesn't grow up here. Maybe it does. I'm just not aware of it.
It's really common down here. They
Yeah.
actually have 4 or 5 trees of live
Mhm.
oak they're going to let me carve on. Otherwise,
Wow.
besides this tree, so on the same property within 2 or 3 acres. So they're very
Wow.
common down here. I'm
Right.
sure.
Okay, so let me paint the picture. So you're how old when you first brought your works to that little that gallery or shop?
I was 14, so it was
14.
a year ago. Um,
Wow. And so you were able to handedly buy all the tools that you needed. Probably $500 can get you a lot of
yeah,
tools.
I bought
Pretty
I
good
bought
amount.
sharp and different other tools just to get me started sharpening systems and different things.
Okay, so for those of us who don't know what the work sharp is, you get the one with the glass disc?
Yes, sir.
Yep, the 3000. Yeah, so what that is the sharpening system that allows you to mount. Actually, I have one right here. I have the glass discs at least that mount to it, but you can mount sandpaper of different grits to them, and they allow you to sharpen your tools without overheating the bevels quite as much because they absorb some of the heat. And of course, you get the added advantage of having a super flat surface. It's glass, and so it's excellent for sharpening your tools. So I recommend that as a sharpening system. So anyway, and so does Jet. It sounds like, have you liked it?
I've loved it. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really helpful for if I nick a tool, just
Yep.
I can go through all those grits of sandpaper and go
Yeah.
to the fourth. I even bought like a 4,000 grit that really
Dang.
gets polish on it. So
Yep.
yeah, I really have enjoyed that.
That's great. And so let me ask you about sharpening, because you're way ahead of where I was when I was 15. I mean, I was still trying to figure out how to sharpen my tools. I was using a combination of sandpaper and hand tools. Have you found that to be a thing that you're confident in now with sharpening? And how long did that take?
So I'm definitely not confident in sharpening. Sharpening is definitely it's trial and error.
Yeah,
Me, even
right.
even to this day, sharpening is still trial and error. Just
Yeah,
testing how well it cuts, and
yep,
I still don't understand all the basics of it. I'm still
yep,
experimenting with it. I've
yep,
I've come to a better knowledge. The work sharp has definitely helped. Your videos have helped me
yes. Cool.
tremendously with
That's
understanding
awesome.
sharpening. So
That's
yeah,
great.
I don't understand the full capacity of sharpening.
Oh yeah. Well, nor do I. I mean, I remember I taught a lesson once years ago, when I was still figuring out, and I still am, so I shouldn't say when I was figuring it out. I was even more novice than I am now. And it was a doctor, he was a surgeon, and we went on a Zoom call or like a Skype call, and he said, Alec, I really wanted to focus on sharpening in this lesson. And so just tell me a little bit about the grind angles that you use. And tell me exact, because I've heard that the 27 to 33 degree angles are ideal for certain types of hardwood carving. And as he was talking, I was realizing, oh no, I don't know anything about grind angles. Like, who's getting their protractor and measuring the angle of the chisel that they're carving? Anyway, so I was way out of my depths in that class, in that lesson, and I just was honest with him, like, man, I have no idea. And he never booked another class with me again, of course. But I digress. So just being able to get the basics of it and get your tool nice and sharp, that's huge. So you're way ahead of me when I was your age, it sounds like at this point. So okay, so walk me through you're 14 years old and you brought your artwork to a venue and they bought it from you right away. That's a cool feeling, right?
I was very pumped.
Yeah, I bet. And so what was it like going from that point, the first things you had sold, to now? Like, what are some of the, you mentioned art shows, you're demonstrating. Have you just kind of milked every avenue you can on the island? And actually, also, sorry, secondary question. Where do you live, if you don't mind me asking?
So I live on Amelia Island,
Okay.
Fernandina Beach,
Okay.
Florida. It's
Okay.
a small island, very, very small. Probably only has, I don't even know how many people live on it. Very, very few, maybe 14,000. Very, very, very small
Wow.
island.
Wow.
Um, very little people on it.
How
And I
cool.
do art shows on the island and off the island. I do some in St. Simons, which is another island way bigger than Amelia Island. It's
Okay.
up in Georgia, and
Okay.
it's very popular in carving. Carving, they have a lot of tree spirits up there.
Yep.
That's trying to build into that avenue down here because no one has ever taken that avenue down. About back to
Yeah.
the shops and art shows and things. How I feel about where I was then and how I feel about now. I see a lot of improvement. Actually, the other day when I was at an art show, one lady came up to me and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe how much you've improved. The carving style has just changed so much." And I feel like when I even go into the shop, they still have a couple of my carvings in that shop, and I'm so embarrassed. I literally just I want to like hide in my shell because like I can't believe this is what I thought was acceptable to sell to people, and I'm sure people think that when they come by and they bought a carving even 6 months ago. I feel almost ashamed
Yeah.
that
I
that
get
that
it,
was my
man.
old work. So
Oh yeah. No, I feel the same. I mean, it's hard for me not to just nod and say same with a lot of what you said, because yeah, that's my experience too. So, and I've even made stuff in the last few years where I look at it and I go, I made that and I sold that to you. I'm so sorry. That's gross. But yeah, it's definitely a struggle to when you're starting out to like justify. Like for me, the trouble was like I had family friends who were buying stuff from me when I first started, but before that point, I was getting offers from my mom's friends. You know, hey, I love that wood spirit, and I was thinking, there's no way in the world I would sell you this. This is horrible. And so, like 2 years of that, or maybe like a year and a half of that, and then eventually I thought, you know, I'm proud enough of these to sell. So it sounds like you went through a similar maybe gestation period of a couple of years since you started carving until selling it to sort of get to a confidence level.
I mean, if people want one of my old carvings, I'll give it to them for free because I don't feel like
Yeah,
it's worth paying for.
right.
So,
Yep.
like,
Same. Yeah.
if our friend wants one, I'm like, here, just take it. It's
Yeah.
not worth it anymore. So,
Right. That's absolutely the case for me. I was at a little event. I had some friends and customers over to the house for a collector's party, and at the end, my friends found an old stash because it was at my parents' barn where I started carving, and they were like, "No way! Look at these carvings left and right." They had piles of awful, awful. I mean, just hideous wood spirits and like faces with nose that were blockier than a, I don't know, something a car out of the '80s. And they were gross, but they were like so excited to be just stealing them and putting them on their walls in spite of me, to spite me. And anyway, so I get that. I did give them away to them, I guess, ultimately. But yeah, it's a funny thing, but it's great. I remember fondly being your age, and tell me if you basically just communicated that you feel this way. Your growth is like it's incremental as you get older. Like now, I can't necessarily always tell if my growth is great or small, or if I'm going backwards. But I look back over the course of 3 or 4 years, and then I see growth. But with when you're at the age that you're at, and you're in the first few years of carving, and you're committed as you are, because I'm seeing your work, and you're just so far ahead of anyone your age. I feel like most people your age are just in the carving world are just way way behind you. But it feels so. It's such an exciting feeling to see that each piece gets a little better in the sense of you understand something else that you didn't understand before. You unlock something, and it's just this. There's just so much excitement, and I remember feeling that, and I felt that when I talked to you the first time, and that's why I was so excited to talk to you about this stuff, is because I could see it.
yeah, no, I definitely feel like every carving I do, if I do a lighthouse again and again and again, I feel like I learn something new. I come up with a new pattern, a new design. Just yeah, no, definitely unlocking what you said, like just unlocking new designs, finding out new ways to do something better, way to do eyes better, way to do a nose better, way to do a lips better, way to do
Right,
anything better. And you
right.
definitely see that growth, like you said. In these early years, I mean, literally, like I said, 6 months ago, I'm ashamed of some of the carvings that I did literally 6 months ago.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
the amount of that's I've gone through is crazy.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Well, you said that there's not a lot as many carvers down there with the wood spirits. Are there is there a lot of carving community down there for you? Have you found that you've been able to connect with, are there carving groups or what people your age? I mean, I feel like I know the answer to that one, but what does that look like the community?
None really. Carvers are very few down here, especially hand carvers. I mean, you can find a chainsaw carver about in any town you live, but you can't find many hand carvers.
Hmm.
So I've done a little bit of. No one my age is doing it. I've done a little bit of teaching with a couple of folks who are younger than me, just showing them just little whittling projects and things like that. I found a couple guys who have done a couple whittles, but there's no really carving groups down in this area that I've known of or even joined. So
Wow. And so, well, that's, I mean, partially probably because you live on an island. You literally live on an island.
yes, yes.
So that factors into it a little bit. Um, Yeah, I found the same thing, man. I mean, out here there are wood carving groups because we live in like the Metro Detroit area, and so there are like tens of millions of people in this area, right? So we have a lot of retired folks who ended up carving, and so there were these clubs that I used to go to when I was your age, 15. Kind of stopped doing them around your age because I found that I don't know, the vibe or I hate that word, but the energy at those places was like, wasn't feeding me as much anymore. I wasn't getting as much out of it. But those early years, those first like 4 years of being in community with other people, they were good, but there's just not a lot of it. You know, like we had to drive an hour to somewhere up north to get into this little shed where a bunch of old guys talked and swore for 3 or 4 hours a morning. You know, once, you know, again, that was like it was a treat for me just to hear all the gossip in the world of elderly men carving ducks, and just to see the visceral excitement on their face. And I know that you've experienced this. Like the world of carving is mostly, you know, people who are a little older than us, right? So that has to be quite an experience too for you to feel like there are not a lot of people my age doing this. Like, do you know of any at all?
None.
Yeah, right.
I'm a dying art, so it makes me sort of sad
Yeah,
it's such a dying art that literally no one my age is doing it.
right,
Uh, it's it's a good side and a bad side. The business side, it's great because there's literally no competition. I can sell
right,
what I'm the only wood carver literally on this island. So big trees. So
right.
it's a business avenue for
Er,
all that. But it is sad because
mm,
it's the community would be more. I found it more online. I get when I watch, say, one of your videos or another carver's, Lucas Kosh, other carvers' videos. I just
yes.
looking at their carvings. And I'm like, I want to go and carve. I want to go and carve right now. So
Yep.
yeah, that's basically where I find my growth in community. It's not actually in person, but it's more online.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what we're ultimately doing here, right? Is we're introducing the carving community to you, to Jet Paxton, and that's fun. That's super fun. But yeah, it's a strange thing. It's a strange world because there aren't really as many outlets for it. Like again, there are the carving clubs and the carving events. They exist, but even those, I was talking to a coordinator of one recently, and he was saying, you know, one of the bigger events in the United States, saying that these things are just going away, man. They're fading away. And I've just noticed since COVID, more and more people are watching videos online. You know, they've got communities online and they're just doing the best they can with that. And that suits them. And there's YouTube, right? You know, that's a huge way to connect with people and to learn. That's how I learned ultimately, too. I learned through YouTube as much as anything else. Have you been able to take lessons at all? Or have you, outside of like YouTube, or what has YouTube been a main source, or are there any books that you've learned and recommend, or what has that been like the learning process?
YouTube and your school is basically it.
Yeah,
I find that online has been very useful for the reasons that no one will actually be helping me with my car.
yeah,
And I feel like that definitely helps because
right,
I do all the work. No one else can go and, oh, this eye doesn't look right. Let me fix that for you.
yep,
No, you have to focus fully online because they're on a screen. They can't help you. You have
yep,
to figure it out yourself. Even if they're instructing you, which is a huge help,
yeah,
you have to do the full carving yourself. And I find that very helpful. I mean, the limitations of it are helpful uh,
right,
in a way. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's so interesting you mentioned that, because we've talked about it on the CNC show before. Is that like when COVID started, I remember talking to somebody, you know, after the second bout. So this was after the first bout of COVID that we all experienced in the States, and many people in the world. He said, you know, what I've noticed through this first thing with COVID is people, or this whole thing with COVID is, have gotten so much better at carving
Yeah.
through these online classes. And I remember being kind of surprised, and then remembering my childhood and going, wait a second, I did it the same way online. I didn't have a teacher to, oh, like you said, exactly what you said, to, oh no, let me redo that nose for you. The mustache is a little too broad, and the eyes need to be further apart or closer together. And it's like I end up doing that in my classes to an extent that I've actually come to the point that when I do teach, I try to avoid touching the carving altogether, right? And so I want them to feel proud of what they did or not proud of what they did, and then grow from that feeling of, oh, I want this to be better. Because this creates this cycle, right? A lot of people are caught in this cycle. And that's okay. If you enjoy classes and you enjoy working with an instructor who does a lot of the work for you, by all means, if it's a source of entertainment, yeah, there's no gatekeeping here. But if you want to, improve your skills, it's a great feeling to see you've made something, you don't like it, and then you work towards making it better. And then at that point, your confidence builds because you made the thing better, right? That's the process of carving for me. It's like, I make this, it needs this, it needs that. And then eventually it becomes what it is. When you have an instructor there sometimes who's doing the work for you, you miss out on those important stages. I just basically said what you said, but with less articulately and with more words. So kudos to you. But it is definitely a funny dichotomy because most people are like, I would never take a class online, or I would never try and learn, from the interwebs because I like the in-person. I could never replace in-person. And it's like, well, I mean, not if you're there to hang out, I guess, but if you're there to learn, there's a lot of good stuff on the internet.
Yes.
But that's just our experience, right? So that's all we can speak to. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never had an in-person class, so I don't have any experience in that. So there might be benefits to both sides. I'm sure there are.
There are. Yeah, I mean, for years, I was just watching Ron Adamson's awesome carving projects and then going, just turn the carving, bro. I can't see it. I can't see the side, like the depth. And then he would turn it and be like, oh, thank God. But there's something you do miss, when you're watching just videos, you never get to see any excellent carvings in person. But I mean, I guess at the same time, if you're carving a face, the best thing that you could look at is your mom or dad or sister or brother or wife or daughter or son, right? It's like an actual person in person is the gift. That's the go by, right? Like there you can branch away and do whatever you want. Stylized, impressionistic, cartoon, realism, whatever you want. You can branch. But if you're starting from the source, then you're going to get something that's totally unique to you. So ultimately, I mean, I think as a teacher, if I'm doing a bad job, if I'm not pointing everyone to whatever it is that they want to carve. If you want to carve horses, go to an equestrian, a saddlery place and whatever they're called. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not trying to carve horses, but go right to the source and take your images, do your drawings from the real thing. So anyway, man, I'm just I'm tickled that you're into carving, and we talked on the phone a few days ago about a project that, I don't know, you don't necessarily have to talk about it if you don't feel comfortable.
I'm fine talking about it.
Okay. But you told me that you're embarking on doing a 7-foot tall carving of a pirate. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
A pirate.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's a big ordeal. I'm planning on doing the island. There's a very famous pirate that's been here for about 40 years. It's called Leg Peep, and he was carved by a chainsaw carver called Wayne Aaron, and he did it. He passed away, I think, 20 years ago, so a long time ago. And it's been rotting for the last couple of years, even longer before that, because they repaired him 3 times. They've glommed him over the paint so much that he doesn't carving anymore.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So
it's a paint sculpture?
Yeah, basically.
That's funny.
They're gonna have me recarve a new one. So the stress is on, the pressure is on. It's the most iconic photographed item on the entire island. So a lot of pressure on that. So
right. I'm excited to follow along. I hope that you document. One piece of advice, not that you're asking for it, but I regret not taking more pictures even, because going back and seeing some of those progress shots and seeing like the carvings that I made and just the context, my family around it and all that stuff, that just it's so fun to see for me. Like now going back, showing my wife and one day my kids, all that stuff. So do take those pictures.
I definitely will.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, man. Is there anything else that we didn't get to talk about? Is there anywhere people can see your stuff? I know there's the gram. Can you share your handle?
Yes, I'm the wood carving dude on Facebook and Instagram. That's the name for both of them.
Cool.
If you want to find me on there, you can like and follow.
Right. Follow
Uh,
along.
yep, and I'll hopefully have some of those pictures of the pirate. I'm going to
Right.
start working on that soon. So
Very cool.
I have one question. Do you mind if I
Yeah.
ask?
Yeah.
So while carving this oak tree that I've been
Yeah.
doing,
Mhm.
my chisels have been snapping. So the edges of the chisels have been breaking off, and I've been researching online how to try to figure it out. Do
Mhm.
you know of any method that I can use? Is that my steel is too low grade? I'm using piffle or pifle or however you pronounce
Oh,
it.
file.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
uh, so I don't know what's going on and why they're breaking so much.
Yeah. I do have an answer to that. So you and I are we're used to carving cottonwood bark, right? And the beauty of cottonwood bark is, of course, first it's soft, so it's easy to work. But the other thing is that the grain structure is such that it's like sheets of paper stacked up one on top of another. So when you're carving into those layers, you can sort of scoop, right? And you can use sort of feathering motions, being that it's a very homogeneous, soft wood without the grain fibers pulling apart. So what that does is it teaches you a way of carving that involves a little more prying, a little more scooping, and what you'll find is in the other hardwoods, especially, is you can't quite get away with those sort of same movements, and you almost have to train yourself out of them. I found the same thing as I was transitioning from bark, which I still do some bark, and quite a bit of bark for like art shows and stuff. Um, is that I end up having to kind of train myself. Okay, don't do as much prying. When you get in there, smaller cuts, right? You're used to making larger cuts with basswood, or sorry, cottonwood. And so just taking smaller bites, taking your time, not prying, um, not doing as much crazy scooping action with your thinner gouges will help. And also your grind does change a little bit, the grind angle. Um, so in other words, your thinner angles, like if you have a thin like piece of steel, it's more likely to break, of course. So you want to do your grind angle a little bit shorter. So the bevel, you know what the bevel is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the bevel is going to be a little shorter on your tools when you do end up fixing them or regrinding them, for just a little shorter for your hardwood carvings. So softer wood carvings, you can have a nice long bevel; it'll glide through easily. Uh, you know, Heavier, harder woods, generally you have a shorter bevel that is better equipped to take blunt force and less likely to chip. So,
Do I need to have? I looked online. It said you have like a 10% or a 10 degree inside bevel. Do I need that on a gouge? I saw that online where it said to prevent it from breaking on hardwoods, you want a little bit of an inner bevel. Gouge?
interesting. Yeah,
Um,
I think naturally. Yeah, I've never done that. I've never intentionally put a 10-degree rake or a bevel on the inside of my gouges, but I always do strop my gouges pretty heavily from the inside, so I might have just a few percent break in, but very little. I've yet to read about that, so maybe there's some value in doing that, and maybe we should leave. I'll cut this part in so that we can see what other people think as well in the comments below. So I'd love to hear if folks have any thoughts on that. If you more experienced carvers have dabbled with putting an interior bevel on the gouge. So
yeah, the wood is very hard. I mean, it literally is like carving almost rock.
uh,
It's so hard. I mean, literally that carving I've been doing only with hand tools.
yeah,
I've been doing it for 13 hours maybe already.
wow,
I've only gotten that little much done, like
right,
getting done. So it's just
yeah,
crazy how hard it is.
yeah. Can you show? Speaking of which, before we get off, I would love to see a picture of that wood spirit that you did.
Sure. Yeah, I have one right on here.
Yeah, because that thing was just so cool. My wife and I we were looking at that a couple nights ago, just going like, "Wow, that is so cool."
I love doing that. That was a ton of fun. That was way softer, I guess, because it was
Uh,
water oak.
Okay.
It's a lot softer than live oak. I guess because what I heard is live oak, it still grows. It's like an evergreen tree, and it still grows during the winter months. And the winter months have thicker growth rings, so they're more dense and they're harder to carve than say like a water oak.
Right. Huh. That would make sense. Yeah. Hard growth rings or winter growth rings. Yeah, that is so cool, man. I love the way that looks. And the closed eyes, dude. That's so cool. Absolutely dope.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want for the podcast?
That's it, man. You killed it. Thanks again for doing it. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I've been really stoked about this. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Dope, man. All right. Well, we'll have to see you soon. Love to have you back on.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, man. See you.
See you.
Wasn't he so cool? He's just the nicest kid. And super talented. Go support him, the wood carving dude. Thanks again, Jet, for coming on. And really, not a lot of mail. Just one mailbag comment, really, not even a question. Just somebody saying, it was Mike Coster here, saying that take advantage of the new situation to put a different face on the show. Talking about like doing a visit with someone who's a clay artist, or maybe going to a museum, or going to see a painter, or just a number of different ideas, wood burning, all kinds of stuff. So I've also seen comments, and I read all of the comments, guys. So I haven't gotten to them yet, but he talked about maybe having an interactive show where we both carve, or the interviewee, and of course the interviewer, we both make something. And who knows? It's possible that could happen during an episode. At this point, I'm going to keep it to interviews, and who knows? Maybe at one point, if you guys want that bad enough, we'll make that happen and do some other things like that. But I do carving demos on my personal channel, lessons, free lessons there as well. So you can check that out if you're looking for more like demonstration content. But we're going to keep it as a podcast for the time being, at least. And sincerely appreciate the support again. That's pretty much it for me. I mean, I don't want to extend this any more than I need to. As far as media, I haven't really been taking in a lot of media. I've just been talking to my wife, who's calling me right now. Sorry, wife. I'll call you back in a minute. And just been listening to a good amount of music, a healthy amount of music. I like the Lex Friedman show. There's a lot of good podcast interviews that he does. I'm a big fan of his, and at least he's a great interviewer. And just so many great podcasts out there to listen to. I definitely like to do that. And I've been hitting the YouTube hard. This past week, I have been sick with COVID, and so I didn't really do a lot, but I sat around and I've been watching reviews, information, learning kind of how to work my camera better, and just kind of growing those skills. So, because God knows I need all the help I can get, right? So my dad and I picked up some firewood yesterday, and I helped him with that. He fixed up the old truck. Remember the old Jeep Comanche? Those of you who have are OG Coffee and Carving Show folks, all about the Jeeps. And that thing needed some crazy steering component that was making the steering wheel so that when you turned it, you had to turn it basically, 30 degrees before it would even start to turn. It was just a sloppy old, I felt like you were driving an old boat, right? So much slop in the wheel. He fixed that, and he made that a lot more tolerable. And he also said that like the brakes were failing. He actually borrowed it for one day, and thank the Lord it was that day that the car fell apart, because now he's responsible, right? No, he was very generous to fix it up. And apparently the transcoolant hoses were leaking everywhere. But what it led to is me figuring out that I have a transcooler on the Jeep. And I'm sorry for the nerds out there who are rejoicing in this, and all the rest of you who are just like, what's a transcooler? But that's good news for the truck. It means I can tow stuff with it. So I didn't know that. I didn't know it had that. So talking about the 87 Jeep Comanche, by the way. So that thing is in the best shape it's been since I've owned it. It's got good tires on it. It's running well. The steering's fixed. The brakes are good now. So a big shout out to my dad. Thanks for that. And he also put new tuners on the old Home Depot guitar. So for those of you that don't know, my dad built this out of wood that we picked out on a trip to Home Depot. And he's a wizard. He's a guitar wizard, and it's an amazing sounding guitar. He gave it to me for Christmas. I mean, it sounds just... all from Home Depot wood, and right from scratch. I mean, we took the boards from Home Depot, brought them home, and he did all the magic here. So hand shaped the neck, and the tuners that he put on it were inferior to these. These are really nice tuners. So anyway, that's it. That's what I've been up to this week. And without further elaboration, thanks again, guys. It truly means a lot that you shared all those comments last week just about the support of the show, and I just I appreciate it. So super cool, and see you in the next one. All right, thanks, guys. Go take your vitamins. There's sick people out there.